Welcome back to another episode of the Table Network podcast. This episode is special because we're all here in person.
Yeah.
My name is Zach, here with Kenzie and Chris, and are thankful you guys are joining us today. In this episode, we get to dive into your story a little bit.
I know. A little scary.
A little scary. Getting ready to release a new book, which is a little exciting at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So quick question to kick us off. Top 3 most impactful books of all time for you. Go.
Okay, so I would have to start with the number one kind of life-altering was Love Does by Bob Goff. That was a huge eye-opener that people are worth loving and that they're not just a means to an end. And so that was just really woke me up from my own, very isolated.
On my list also.
Wow.
Because I was just in a place of leadership where I was totally burnt out, and it helped me re-engage with the heart of leadership again.
That's right.
So,
dang.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
I have read it. I love that book.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever actually thought about this question before, though, so it might be on my list.
Do you have any books not by Colleen Hoover in your top 3?
Oh my gosh. I've read 2 Colleen Hoover books. Let's not change the subject here.
You call her Coho.
No. Oh my gosh. This is a total derail of the conversation.
Right,
what's number 2?
Okay. I would say that after that first one, they're not necessarily in an order, but I would say 2 of the books that really helped shape who I am from a leadership perspective, from a work, the way I think at work. 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni is just, it was really important for me at the time to understand the connection between trust and this idea of teamwork at a time when I'm trying to leverage team in a productive way, but didn't know really what was the missing element. And for me, that was a big eye opener on trust. And then kind of a wild horse, I think, is Gary Keller's book, This One Thing, or The One Thing. And it really kind of helped me understand the power of now, like this instant, this moment, how not to waste it, and how I prioritize my time. You guys hear me talk about all the time, like the myth of multitasking. All of that came from that book. Really gave me a lot of permission too. I was one of these guys who was like open door policy. You can come in anytime. And Gary is like, no, you need to shut your door so that you can get your things done. And make sure that you actually operate with a schedule. Like you can't just be interrupted every day, all day. So yeah, just some really good. Now, of course, those all pale to the Bible.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I figured if I read the Bible, everybody will be like, oh boy.
Cop out.
I was even going to list 3 books of the Bible, but decided to be real.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I spent the last little bit, like if I pick out of the 4 Gospels, 3, which would I pick? And that's what I was weighing out in my head. But Harry Potter was right there in the mix. So
you didn't list your first book.
I did not. No, because I don't think of myself as an author.
But you wrote a book.
I know.
How do you define author?
Somebody who has a skill set, like a writing skill set. Like they're a good, skilled, like technical writer.
Okay.
And so an author. So it's like I will tell somebody, oh, this guy is an amazing author. But it's funny, I only really apply that to fiction. I've never applied that to nonfiction.
Yeah, that's interesting. I get what you're saying, because I think there are a lot of people out there that have books.
Yeah.
And have written books that aren't necessarily like very skilled or talented in the art of writing.
Yeah, but you're a great storyteller.
Yeah.
In person. I think converting that to a book is just harder from scratch. I think I can be a great storyteller in writing when like the way I've written these books. It's again, even then you catch that little when we wrote these books. So I will never really just stand up and be like, I wrote books. In fact, people ask me, how many books have you written? And I'll usually dodge the question. And not because of false humility, but because of I just don't think of myself as an author.
Yeah. What was your motivation for writing book number 1? And just give us a quick overview of what it was. And that'll set up the conversation around book number 2.
Yeah. So the 3 concepts that I've learned over the years that this book series is really covering, I learned them in an order that got very general down to very specific. And so I thought it would be good to write the books in the reverse order. so that I could give like leaders something to go do tangibly, because I desperately wanted that when I first got into leadership. And so the first book is really more a technical manual, I think, of like, what do you do every day? Because that was one of the questions I got when I got promoted into leadership was, I'm a doer by nature. In fact, that's how I unfortunately link my value is to doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got to be a leader, I'm like, well, I'm not doing these things anymore, or I'm not supposed to be doing these things anymore. So I felt guilty when I did things because I wasn't sure what I should do. And so this really aligned. The first book that I wrote was really a technical manual on like what to do mechanically. Whereas this next book is kind of the bridge between what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it. So the middle of this is kind of the why. And this next book is more of a memoir about my leadership journey, but it gives some foundation for me, foundation of like, why am I going to go do all the things that I wrote in that first book? Because if you do that, if you live that out in that first book, Align, which is all about organizational alignment, it is painful to corral humans around a central idea constantly is just exhausting. And so I had to come up with my own internal why, and that's what this next book is really all about.
And this might be the first time that we're saying it out loud.
Yeah.
But what is the title of book number 2?
The Empathy Revolution.
That's
and
good.
I love.
How did you come up with that?
It was one moment of sheer revelation, and just just popped into my head through an email by a guy, again, I mentioned already, Pat Lencioni, who was gracious enough to read the manuscript, and then in his discussion about his reviewing or reading the manuscript, said that he really read it and thought, man, the Empathy Revolution sums it up much better than the title that we had originally come up with. And so, being a great author, Pat being a great author, and has written so many books, I'm like, well, let's go with what this guy thinks. So that's where we are. That's where we landed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, lots of books in the market, and we got a stack of them here on the desk.
Yeah.
Why write another book? What's your why behind this book?
So this gives me a chance to kind of explore a little bit about my personality in a way that I typically don't do on a day-to-day basis, which is much more emotional. And so I'm just not someone who was raised in a home where empathy and vulnerability were talked about or modeled at all. And I love my parents, and they did a fantastic job. As you guys have heard me say, I claim parent privilege all the time, but they weren't raised in homes where empathy and in a generation where I don't think empathy and vulnerability were talked about a lot. But in my own journey of leadership, it kind of collided with a personal journey that I was going through around empathy, and really trying to understand an aspect of my faith that I was trying to live out at the time, which is based on a verse that says, mourn with those who mourn and rejoice with those who rejoice. In other words, like mirror somebody else's emotion so they don't feel alone. And that really is kind of the basis of empathy. And so kind of in that journey, it's leading me, I won't say it led me, it's leading me down the path of really leveraging emotion in a way that creates a unified front, no matter whether I'm at home or at work, instead of running away from emotion, which is what I've spent a lifetime doing. So this book was cathartic in writing because in every session there were tears, and this like trying to get into like a deeper understanding of my own upbringing, my own emotions, in what I then bring to work. I mean, we all know we can't just turn off our home self when we show up at work, and vice versa. And so this journey of like, how do I bring my whole self to work? Well, we do have emotion, and how do we leverage that at work? And so this book is a real big, I think, dive into that expression of who we are and how we want to interact as human beings.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been around since book 1 and helped you with both of these books, and I think book 1, Align, is fantastic. But I think just getting to see the process of working through this Empathy Revolution book, not even knowing what we were going to call it, or calling it something, I think we've changed the title like 3 times now.
Yeah.
But that journey that you are letting people in on, I think will speak volumes and give so much more credibility to the first book. I think, like you said, the first book is very practical, and I think a lot of leaders are in a place of desperation where they just need to know what to do. Like, they're lost, they're confused, they're alone, and they just need some tangible steps. But I think, like you said, they're going to need something to fall back on when even the steps, while they're helpful, are not going to be the end all be all. And so I think what this book does is give leaders a safe place to go, and understanding that they're not alone in the struggle and the feeling, and then to give them motivation to understand what they need for themselves and how they can extend that to other people. So I think I'm excited for people to get to read it. I've read it over and over and over again by now. And so I'm excited to get it in people's hands.
Yeah.
So what do you hope people take away from this book? This is kind of more a deep dive into like your leadership journey and some of the pivotal moments that formed who you are now as a leader, as a person, as a human, as a husband. And so what do you hope they take away?
Really, the first book focused on employee fulfillment. Like, if you align your organization around a central purpose, and then you work really hard to make sure that you're living out that purpose on a daily basis, and what you do and who does it. That's really that first book. Employee fulfillment, which is so critical that you don't feel like you're regretting time spent at work later on. Well, this book, what I'm hoping people walk away with is a way to find leadership fulfillment. Like, you're going to go through really tough things on this journey, and it will either burn you up or it will give you the fulfillment you need to realize, I did hard things, I did hard work, but man, that felt good. And leaders need to feel that as much as employees need to feel that. And so that's really what I hope people really kind of learn from this book, is that there is a path to leadership fulfillment. But it goes right down a path, for me at least, that's not comfortable. Yeah. I look at it this way. Okay, so big into we go to Maine for 5 months out of the year, and one of the most beautiful things on the planet to me, I know this may sound weird, where our house sits, we kind of look back up into, we're surrounded by woods. And when you look back up into those woods, there's something magical about the Maine woods. I don't know what it is. It's the moss covered, ground. It's the rugged kind of wilderness feeling to it. Well, I liken the book series that we're in the middle of right now to this process of like getting a group of people through the woods to the other side, whatever you want to define the other side as. And so Align is kind of the tactical measures that you take to get a group of people through the woods. It's how you keep them all focused on the goal, the purpose. We want to get from point A to point B. So it's things like a compass. It's a map. It's very tangible, tactical things that you can do to get people from point A to point B. But this book, this Empathy Revolution, is going to be taking that concept, and then it's going to give the leader, I think, more of a sense of like, in the middle of the woods, like, why am I doing this? This is hard work, and these people aren't listening to me, and we're not making progress today. I wish somebody else was leading. Because if we're honest as leaders, there's a little bit of us that will come to work or even at home, and we kind of wish somebody else led today. I just want to chop a tree today, kind of mindless. I just want to do this thing. I want the tree to fall. I want to create a pile of firewood, and I don't want to have to interact with anybody else. And I don't want to have to make a decision that everybody's going to critique. And I don't want to take us on a path that everybody's going to, in little groups behind your back say, why is he taking us over here? Why are we going over here? Shouldn't we go over this way? Why aren't we going that way? I don't understand this decision. It's exhausting. People second guessing all the time. People always wondering, does this guy know what he's talking about? Does he know where we're going? So you're going to get to a place, all leaders, I think, do. I get there almost every day where I'm just like, can somebody else please lead? Like, I just need someone else to take the mantle and get people from point A to point B. I'm tired. I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but there's a weariness that creeps in. Well, if I can give myself a real reason to keep going and what I'm called to do in this moment, man, it's hard and it's just still exhausting, but man, is it fulfilling. And that's really what this book is focused on, is to give that breath of life, that minute of like, why are you doing this? Why not take a back seat and let somebody else lead? Well, here's why. Because we all want to fill that void, because we want to serve these people really, really well. And nobody else is stepping up. If we all wait for the next person to lead, nobody leads. That's really why I wrote the book.
Well, so dive into that in just a little bit more depth here in just a second. But for you, what is that why? Like, what's just on the other side of the woods?
For me, it's the process. I want to see these people get to point B and find success, organizational success, and then individual success. And so, having one person realize for the first time maybe in their lives that they can do something great that they maybe didn't have permission to do before. And being there in that moment and being present in that moment is worth every ounce of effort that you put in. There are great, I think, business reasons to lead if you're the owner of your business. Maybe financially. Maybe you're like, if we get through from point A to point B, maybe that's your why. But I'm telling you right now, you will never feel fulfilled if your goal is selfish in leadership. I know, because I've been there. Like, I've created a company that was successful, and yet I was incredibly alone, emotionally alone and isolated, and I was miserable. So speaking from experience, I'm saying that pot of gold, it's just not worth the hassle. Like, it's just not, it wasn't for me. I wanted to quit and go start another business. So that's really, for me, the motivation is being able to see in other people's eyes, like a belief in themselves, that they didn't have before. It's unlocking or unleashing people in ways they've never experienced. And at the same time, getting across that finish line, getting to point B, looking at each other and going, we did it. Like, we did it. Not, hey, thank you for getting me here.
Yeah.
But like, look what we did. There's nothing like that on the planet to me.
Yeah. I love that picture. Like, we're capable of so much more, and you're helping others by casting big vision and letting them know what's on the other side of the woods, tap into that more inside of them, like a resilience they might not have even known was there.
That's right.
Also to tap into a camaraderie or a community that they were designed for, but might not have experienced.
That's right.
And so it's cool. You really can enjoy the journey. Yeah. Even though it's hard.
It's very hard, especially if your perspective is like this me focus. If I'm the and I've said this before, if I am the main character of the movie of my life, then my expectation for everyone else who's on this journey with me is that my expectation is that you guys are incredible protagonists along the way. Right? That would be an expectation. Like, nobody's going through life with an expectation that you're going to be an antagonist. Like, you're not going to be in the woods together and there's this one villain who's constant, and that would be the story I would want for myself. No, we would want to surround ourselves with only people who are wanting me to succeed.
Yeah.
Right? That is so backwards of what real leadership is about. It's about who do I need to be for each of you in the woods, so that if people were watching this movie unfold, they would recognize you as the main character in my life. And that I would hope they would think, man, that guy was the greatest protagonist for them. I couldn't have written a better protagonist for them in any kind of story.
Yeah.
And that's that trade that needed to take place in my own life, was replacing the focus of my greatness for the focus of your greatness.
Yeah, I think society like raises us up to be self-focused comfort creatures, right? Like, where we are the champions of our own story. There's some like Manifest Destiny or American Dream kind of built into that. It takes intentionality to think outside of that and see others.
Yeah.
And in moments of clarity, what's the T Swift song where she says, "Me, I'm the problem, it's me."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. You sang that really well.
I'm not going to sing it.
We'll loop in the track, right? But we realize like, oh shoot, I am the common denominator amongst all my problems. There's a lot of other people out here. Maybe the world doesn't spin around me.
Yep.
So here's a pitch for a YouTube skit. We'll add it onto the podcast. The main character, Maine,
I like it
will drop Kenzie in the woods, and she'll try and go solo.
Yeah, we could do a whole TV series on that.
Oh, yes.
Isn't there already a TV series on that? It's just not me out there. But like all the Naked and Afraid
Solo
and Survivor.
Nobody
stuff.
said
nobody
naked.
said naked, Kenzie.
But isn't that a show?
It is.
Okay,
It is, yeah.
But they go on pairs.
Okay.
No.
Anyways,
just
I'm going to
you
loop
and a
this.
There's a
compass.
show
No.
called Alone.
Okay.
There is.
Alone, where they just drop them alone in the woods.
Yeah.
How
long do you think you could make it?
Oh my gosh. I'd rather die.
How long before sunset?
Oh my
About that
God.
long.
About
Yeah.
that long,
Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of, Chris, when does this new book come out?
This new book comes out in October.
Yes, so
Yes,
exciting. It's
I
going to be
know.
available for pre-order. I'm trying to think of when this episode will drop. I'm not really
Soon.
sure, but within the time frame of this podcast releasing, I think pre-order will be available.
That's crazy.
Very soon, which is so cool.
Yeah.
Working on cover design right now, but the manuscript is done. It is fantastic. So
Yes.
if you are listening to this and want to join the book launch team, reach out to us. What's an email? info@dcxcommunity.com. We can get you a copy. That'd be cool.
I'd love it.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited.
Sweet.
We'll edit in a better little pitch and blurb right here.
Great. Well,
But-
you just totally derailed the whole conversation. So I
Yeah.
was trying to loop us back. Stay in time. you know?
The people were probably very interested in the main character.
We can do a whole nother podcast episode about that. Do you want to wrap us?
As always, thanks for joining us on the Table Network podcast. We would love to hear your questions for Chris. Got an open line, so ask him questions about leadership, the book, whatever comes to mind. And of course, join the book launch team and get your free copy now. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Like, comment, rate, and subscribe this podcast. We want to hear from you.